Welcome to Leaders and Learners. My name is Tanya McKenzie, and you can find me at the intersection of public relations and leadership. Join us as we talk to organizational leaders, elected officials, experts, authors, artists, and personalities, sharing their stories, talking about how they got to where they are and how they continue to learn and lead the way. So without further ado, let's get into it. Greetings, good people. Welcome to another edition of Leaders and Learners, where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. Today, one of the things I hope you learn, in case you haven't already picked up on it, when you continue to hear this word creative, what's a creative? I have someone today that has a creative agency that does so many amazing things for brands. But the cool thing is that his background before he launched his own firm is so extensive, and you'll get to hear about that. And then how creative agencies actually combine all of the benefits of a marketing, a PR, advertising, a film, experience agency. They do all of that. So what does your organization need? How can an organization like this actually help you? And then why would someone leave a very profitable industry, and we'll get into that, to do its own thing? Because entrepreneurship is not what it always seems to be on Instagram. So without further ado, I want you to sit back, relax, ask questions if you want in the chat, and we'll get to those. But I want to welcome Abby. Hi, how are you?
What's up, Tanya? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm thrilled to have you here. And I'm excited for people to learn a little something while we also have a little fun and talk about some things in regards to the culture. So with that being said, tell the people where you are and how you got to where you are right now. You're in San Diego, right?
Hiding out in San Diego right here. Shout out to my friend Isaiah and Porsche's Marketplace, where this sweater came from. He's one of our creators that works for the agency as well too. Yeah, hiding out in San Diego. I'm actually born and raised in San Diego. San Diego State University grad. San Diego is near and dear to my heart. I've been back for about a year and a half now, with no plans on staying. Los Angeles actually is home for me. I've been in LA for about over 10 years now. It's where my son was born. It's where I found community and really a place of belonging in that sense and whatnot. But I've been hiding out in San Diego, handling some business and building a business, building an agency, and really diving into this entrepreneur lifestyle. To be quite frank, so.
Listen, LA is not an easy place to live and try to do what you're doing. Actually, I think the market is pretty oversaturated. So why would you want to be here where it's super competitive instead of either where you are, it's still slightly competitive, or even somewhere else where, your services might even be more needed?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great question, and I think it's a great provocation. I think the first and foremost thing, I think even just the thought of saying that it's oversaturated and stuff like that or whatnot, I believe that's definitely the landscape of the business and where it's at. But for me, I believe that we live in a world of abundance, and there's always an opportunity for myself, for others. There's plenty of food on the table for people to come and eat, and not only just eat, but then also create as well too, right? So I think that's just one perspective of it. I know for myself and others and the team that I work with, it's always in the sense of like, what's out there for you, what's the fit for you. I truly believe that, what's for you is for you, and it doesn't pass you up. So, regardless of how competitive it is or not, AMBESA is here. I'm here. My team is here. And, what kind of separates us, from others is not necessarily just like the hard work and the creative thought and output, but really the due diligence and the detail that we put into it. I mean, I think we're very tenacious in terms of how much effort we put into and how many different perspectives that we look at things and look to fulfill our brands, our brand clients or even our talent clients' needs and whatnot, and doing anything and everything we can to ensure that we're achieving those goals and make sure our clients are satisfied. So that and listen, LA's beautiful, man. Like culture-wise, like Tanya, I know you've spent some time in San Diego. I love San Diego. I love what's going on here. There's some really amazing things that are happening culturally. But quite frankly, LA's home, and that's for me, and that's where this agency is based out of. So
it's so funny that you said there's enough food to eat. A girlfriend of mine, she was like, "Yeah, my daughter said I ate that, and I didn't know what she was talking about. What did I miss?" So like urban slang now, it's hilarious to hear that we are the ones that are getting left behind. But since we're talking about how people eat, How do you eat in your business? What is your business and how are you winning in this business?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. AMBESA is a first and foremost we're a full service creative agency, right? So I think you touched upon a little bit about my experience prior to jumping into entrepreneurship. But to answer your question, first and foremost is we are a full service creative agency. Really help folks in terms of their advertising and marketing efforts, really specifically around business development, strategy, marketing activation, whatever that looks like, whether it's digital or in person, and as well as the relationships that we have with some of our our talent clients as well too, and really bringing those things together. So the agency really sits at the intersectionality of where brands and culture are, and I think if anything we've learned over the last 3-4 years, how important culture is for brands to tap into and to connect with. I think that's the whole integration and how technology has really enabled, for me or you or anybody else to become, media platforms, as well as the talent in front of the camera, the production team, the post team, so on and so forth. Like we've really vertically integrated a lot of our communication. So it's really, on us in terms of how we're able to build that community around that. So that's what the agency is kind of in a nutshell. And our vision, or the Lion's vision. AMBESA means lion, by the way. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. Of the native tongues of Eritrea and Ethiopia, and my heritage, where I'm from and whatnot. So, the Lion's vision for us is moving the culture forward through the creative arts. And I know for myself and many others, the creative arts has saved my life many times. And for myself, it's really just helping to drive with our brand clients, and our talent clients to really drive that inspiration that helps and drives business and drives that engagement and amplification that helps lead to purchase. So
listen, many people have niched down their businesses, right? So I don't do this, I don't do that. You do many things that are different, but they blend well when done together well in a cohesive way. Where did you get your experience from? What made you feel like you could do something that many others absolutely cannot accomplish?
Yeah, that's a great provocation. That's a great question. So I started my career on a chip truck. I was driving a truck in East County, San Diego, on a training. I was part of a DEI training program when I came in and got taken at PepsiCo, working for their Frito-Lay division. Moved into a management role as well. But really for myself, like when I started seeing, and I was working in consumer packaged goods, I've got over 14 years of experience amongst some of the biggest, most iconic brands in the world, between my time at PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Anheuser-Busch, and now and most recently at Diageo. There's a lot that goes into just products that are sitting on the shelf and stuff like that. I know for us as a consumer, sometimes we just think, oh, it just shows up on the shelf. There's a price on the shelf tag, and I go ahead and pick it up and go cash out of the register. There's so much that goes behind the efforts and the whole full consumer journey and whatnot, right? Whether it's above the line engagement, whether it's out of home billboards, radio, TV, linear, digital marketing now through our phones and social media, to below the line, whether it's displays, signage, whatever, and I think there's a lot of creative thought and a lot of creative ideology that goes through that. And I think what we now define now is integrated marketing or omni-channel communication to our consumers and whatnot. So I think it's really important to have that in mind and really being consistent around with your brand communication. So for myself, with my experience, especially at Anheuser-Busch and Diageo, really being just like hyper focused on the consumer, and then also to being consistent in terms of what those communications look like and how the consumer was being engaged in store and out of store.
You're very good at working with other brands, and I'm guessing throughout your career, this is something you've been known for. So it makes it almost an easy transition when people have had a great experience working with you. But a lot of professionals don't recognize how important it is to have a top-notch personal brand. You seem to have really kept it together. You're consistent about everything you do. People know what they're getting most of the time when they're dealing with you, unless they're just brand spanking new. And dummy this down for me. How important is it to have a personal brand? And how do you continue to be consistent and elevate your own while you're elevating others in your job?
100%. Yeah. Perception is reality, right? And I think even for myself, something that I struggle with on a day-to-day basis, but that is kind of the way of the world and how we operate. For myself, my personal brand is, 3 things that you'll never, ever get from me is can't, won't, and never. For myself, I operate, and my team as well too. We operate very much boundlessly, right? In terms of, we live, again, as I said before, we live in a world of abundance, right? And to be able to kind of achieve a lot of these, kind of a brand's wildest dreams, or a creative's wildest vision in terms of bringing that to life and whatnot, it quite frankly brings me a lot of joy and whatnot. And I think back to the importance of a personal brand, right? Like you're only as good as what you're able to bring to the table, in that sense. And again, it kind of sounds a little rough, not rough, but a little harsh in that sense. But at the end of the day, people are, I mean, more than anything else, there's 7 billion people in this world. And there's a lot of people that you can kind of choose to go work with and connect with and whatnot. And, if I'm going to connect with somebody, I want to make sure that I want to have a good relationship with them. And then two, I know and expect what I'm going to get out of them, in terms of their effort, in terms of their engagement, and really the output as well too. Right. For my Anheuser-Busch friends out there, I think they all know the term, like making friends is our business. And that's something that's very much near and dear to my heart, and something that's very much in the DNA of the agency here is, that relationship building is so critical, and ensuring that my clients, whether brand, whether talent, whatever it may be, they know exactly what they're going to get out of us. And for us, it's going to be a lot of effort, and it's going to be a lot of tenacity, and it's going to be a lot of detail.
You threw around some really great terms. So give me 3 that you would never want affiliated with you.
Oh, I think I said earlier, can't, won't, and never. Those 3. Yeah. Can't, won't. Yeah. Can't, won't, and never. You'll never hear that from us. There's always, where there's a will, there's a way. And, we're always going to find that solution. It's really important to have that solutions-based mentality, right? Coming into it and whatnot, or really trying to find that solution. Because again, it's easy to say, I can't do it, right? It's super easy to say, oh, I don't know. I don't know where I can find that, or whatever it may be. Like, I think just with what we have access to, with everything that we have access to right now, just technology wise, I know people always say Google it, right? I hate saying that term because I always end up having a list of like 20, 25 things to go Google at the end of the day after having conversations with different folks. But I mean, it's true that like we have the access to a lot of information just at our fingertips.
That's good. I was thinking more words like crook or lazy, but that would go with don't, and then ghetto, and because you're definitely not that. But okay, so I love that though. Okay, I'll go with the 3 you gave me. But I do want to ask you, have you had to deal with a brand that was in crisis? Like, reflect back on your experience, and have you been brought in to work with an organization because they weren't doing well? They've messed up somewhere along the line. Talk to me about your experience with that.
Yeah, I think from an agency perspective, I think crisis is, it's really, again, back to that perception, right, and how you kind of view it. I think every job that we take on always has some type of level of crisis to it, right? Whether it's on the scale of 1 to 10, I'll digress on that sense. But yeah, I mean, I know that for myself, working in the beer industry was always really challenging, right? Just in terms of, where the consumer has really shifted over the last 10 to 15 years, right? As I told you before, like we're very hyper-focused on the consumer. And I think working there in my corporate experience, working for an organization before I stepped out into my entrepreneur journey, I think it taught me a lot of different things in terms of really being flexible and adaptable to different creative ways of finding and building solutions. Again, I work for Anheuser-Busch, so I know that they've had some challenges now, even currently now with Bud Light. And premium domestic lights in general, and what that looks like, and how to connect with the consumer and really help engage them and really get them really excited about that category. I know that I can tell you so many different stories of my time on Stater when I was working on Stater Brothers as an account executive. I'm like, okay, we've lost how many share points this week? Like, oh my goodness, that's a lot, right? And how are you able to kind of, battle and really find solutions to kind of make up those gaps and whatnot. So I think that's just one, is just in terms of really just having that adaptability and flexibility to be able to, think differently, think bigger, and kind of think that's out there from that.
For the audience, how does a creative agency like yours help them battle through maybe not even a crisis, just a lull? Like, things aren't going well. Things could be going better. How do I engage, let's say, Abby and his organization? Why would I engage Abby and his organization? Like, walk me through that.
Yeah, I think the power of, amplifying. I think being able to harness and amplify the power of culture, right? Like, I think that's where we're at right now, right? It just in terms of like, it's funny. I was walking through a grocery store a few weeks ago, and I just noticed all the different stand-ups and signs, and everything was very much like celebrity driven, right? Everything was very much connected with some type of celebrity and stuff like that. And I think for us, I think a lot of brands right now, there's a huge opportunity in terms of being able to tap into culture, specifically, even I'll go a level deeper, Black and brown culture, in terms of what we do. And I think a lot of what brands have now and a lot of corporate organizations really see is they see a lot of those as very monolithic, right, in terms of their approach. And I think Black culture specifically, right, there's just so many different aspects in terms of how we show up and how we express ourselves, right? And I think that's kind of the $1 billion question for a lot of brands right now and a lot of corporations in terms of really just understanding how to be able to authentically tap into culture, right? Like, to use that overused term, authenticity, right? And I think that's where the power of being able to lean into different creatives and leaning into them, not just for what they bring from a value from a talent perspective, but what they bring from a creative directorship perspective. I think that's one of the most underutilized things, where I think a brand comes in and they have an idea of how they want their brand to show up. But that's not necessarily how the brand may show up in their communities and whatnot. And I think leaning into the talents, really the lens of creative directorship, and allowing them to kind of really help construct a full campaign, and advertisement content, and activation and event, whatever it may be, whatever that may look like. And obviously depending on what the budget looks like as well too, leaning in with them and really trusting them and knowing that they're going to make that connection to the consumer that the brand really needs at whatever point in time. So for us, to answer your question, for us, that's where you kind of lean in with us, and you lean in with us from a creative directorship perspective, and really trust and lean in with us on how your brand should show up from a communications perspective to the consumer, because we know the consumer.
When I was an executive director for the YMCA, we used to have these trainings. I think the YMCA has some really great cultural training. So anybody out there that's looking to get really deep understanding about culture and serving communities, like the Y has a structure that's excellent. All that being said, one day they asked us, like, what is culture to you? And of course people are like, oh, Black or white or African or whatever, right? The basics. Like, people don't be thinking deeper than the basics sometimes, which is annoying. And I was like, well, the culture of, like, what culture are you talking about? Are you talking about not just the culture of Black people, but how about Black mothers or construction workers? Or, because everybody's culture, based on what they do and how their lifestyle is a different culture. And I think a lot of people have a hard time with their business, growing their business, or even afraid to jump into a relationship with an organization like yours, because they don't even know who their target audience is first. And then to talk about the target audience, the culture of the target audience, in order to be able to be effective in whatever you're putting out for the organization, how are you able to help them through that? Because I think, and getting them to understand that, because it's also, business owners might be good at one thing. They might be good at whatever it is they're good. They make the best clothes, they have the best fragrances, the best alcohol. But what you do is very specialized. So understanding target audience, they think, oh, well, my stuff is good for everybody. This applies to everybody. So then you don't have the language or the visuals or the events that actually work for that culture of people you really should be trying to get in front of. How do you get people to recognize, listen, sir, I understand who, even if you don't, I understand who your target audience is,
Yep.
And I know how to speak to them? Because that's hard from a business owner or a decision maker's perspective, to trust someone else with this baby that they built and they feel like they might know it better. Like, walk them through that.
Yeah, one of my favorite J. Cole lines, right? You can't be everything to everyone, right? And I think that's the crisis that a lot of brands have, right? Just in terms of wanting to connect with every single human being on this, within their marketplace or wherever their brands are distributed and connected to and whatnot. And quite frankly, that's impossible, right? Like, if you're trying to be everything to everybody, you're not going to be anything to anybody, including yourself, right? And I think just really challenging the brands in terms of understanding who their consumer is, and then also bringing the data to the table. I think I've had the privilege in my career I cut my teeth in category management and data and analytics kind of coming up. So I'm able to speak, at least for ourselves and our team, are able to speak with truth and candor in terms of being able to speak on a data set and really make recommendations on that. But then also beyond gaining that alignment with our brand partners in terms of who their community is, really identifying who these emerging, a lot of these emerging trends, a lot of these emerging consumers are, right? I think I know for myself, I work with a lot of alcohol brands, for example, right? They're always looking to see how they can tap into this Gen Z, that 21 to 26 legal drinking age consumer, and how to tap into that and whatnot. And I think a lot of the challenges that they see is just, quite frankly, they just don't see them. They don't know who they are. And to answer your question about culture, culture is it's a very complex. There's a lot of different definitions of it. I know I've been myself on an exploration in terms of really trying to better understand really like truly the definition of it. I know one thing that I've kind of come to a bit of a passing point on it is with culture, it's how you perceive yourself, and then how you perceive the world, and then how you express yourself, right? And what that looks like and stuff like that. And then really as a marketer, as someone that's trying to figure out groups of people and really try to put these folks in different tribes and congregations and groups, really try to understanding, specifically how are they expressing themselves, right? And how are they kind of go from there? And I've got some amazing clients that I work with on the talent side that are doing some amazing things from there in terms of how they're kind of expressing themselves and who they're connecting with. And again, like really leveraging that data and that information that they have and to say, hey, this is and then not only that, but also adding a value in terms of how valuable that consumer is, not only from a purchase power perspective, but then also from that impressionability perspective as well too, right? Everybody wants their brand to look cool, right? I think that's the most important thing, is really being able to tap into those cultures and those people in those cultures that we perceive to be cool. So
you understand it, but I want you to give me your opinion on what Bud Light got wrong about culture to get into this kerfluffle that they've been in recently, with the headlines kind of not being in their favor, whether it was with the NFL situation, and now I think they've done a great job with the WWE campaign that they have going on now. But what did they miss in regards to culture that had them in a crisis situation not long ago?
Yeah, and I think it just goes back to being everything for everybody, right? I have a little bit of intimate knowledge just because of my time working for the organization. So I think it's really because when you have such a massive brand like that, such a big brand that reaches and touches so many people, like when you have only a finite resource in terms of how you're trying to invest in order to drive consumer engagement, right? So I think, one of the biggest, if I would say, is like shortfalls, and this isn't just exclusive to Bud Light or any other brand. I think it's just with any brand that's really struggling with consistent consumer engagement, is really that focus point, right? And who are you taking those marketing dollars and who are you investing it against, right? I will say that, with Bud Light, I think that UFC sponsorship partnership that they just brokered with Dana White, I think that's
UFC. That's right.
I think it's brilliant in terms of them being able to connect with them, and I think really tapping back to who their core consumer is and really understanding that's who their consumer base is, right? And I think there's nothing wrong with doubling and tripling down on who that is and whatnot, even if it may feel like you're leaving somebody behind and whatnot. I think that's the case. But I think for our agency and what we do, and I think that's the thing where what we do is we advocate also too for those underserved communities that don't get talked to, that don't get engaged to. Again, as I said before, those Black and brown communities, right? Specifically, we're talking about LA earlier. Like Los Angeles is going through an arts renaissance right now. Anybody that knows anything about that city or whatnot we are going through a crazy transformation in terms of not only what the city looks like, but how people are engaging, how people are choosing to socialize, how they're choosing to come together in community. And a lot of that is driven and is very centric around the arts, right? And I'm not talking about just like art shows or, panels and events and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different creative ways of how people are really kind of coming together and bringing folks together and whatnot. So, again, to answer your question, again, it's that focus piece is really that challenge, right? Who is that consumer that you're working with, and who are you, and how are you investing in them? How are you connecting with them? So,
do you mentioned a lot of big names. Do you work with smaller organizations, smaller brands, new brands? What does that look like?
As of right now, we have worked with a lot of different brands. And I think that just more of the relationships and the connectivity that we've had with our agency and who we kind of drive with. Some of our talents that we've come on, that we brought on and whatnot, have had smaller names, and they're still very much building their name up and stuff, building their name up in that sense. But a lot of the work that we do in terms of working with smaller brands, again, it really just depends on like the resources that they have to deploy. I know smaller brands usually have that challenge. And I always tell people that marketing is an investment into your business. It's usually not an immediate revenue driver. So if you have the appetite to be able to invest and so forth, please lean in. And I think that's a lot of the challenges that the small brands have, is when they want to put the money up from a marketing perspective, they want to immediately get a return. To answer your question about some of the small brands, I have worked with some of the local hospitality folks here in San Diego during my time here, in terms of helping drive and amplify their brands through the creative arts, and being able to lean in and tap on that kind of stuff or whatnot. But again, a lot of the challenges that I see when working with smaller brands sometimes is, again, they want that instant gratification of return. And anything about brand amplification is very much an investment, and it takes time, and it takes a lot of consistency in terms of your approach.
You keep talking about the culture. I don't think everybody knows what the culture is. What is the culture to you?
The culture to me right now is music. I am just head first into music. I am loving everything that we're seeing from a music perspective. Right now, the DJs are really leading the way for us. I think about guys like Brian Henry. I think about Dashe. I think about Uri Hall. So many different folks out there right now that are just doing some really amazing things in the music world. The folks selection and the work that they're doing, and really bringing in a different sound and really challenging different folks. There's another group that's coming up in LA called Motherland Sounds for them. So for myself, music is my culture right now. And it's going to look different for a lot of other different folks and stuff like that. I think right now also too, that as I talked about earlier about the Renaissance, that we're going through that arts Renaissance. There's a lot of different folks that are coming in from an artistry perspective, and really trying to drive a lot of different things and stuff like that. So, and really driving that amplification, and really using their art to bring people together. And then if the brands are smart enough and they've partnered with them and they've invested with them or whatever, they're getting that tailwind support there or whatnot. So again, what is culture? Again, it looks different for a lot of folks right now. For me, it's music, and it's very music centric.
I love that. I want to ask you a music question. So hip hop, we're celebrating 50 years. Yay! Mm-hmm. But hip hop is not doing what it was doing before. It's not doing the numbers it was doing before. It's not selling. It's not chart topping like it was before. Yet I can't get my teenager to understand that I don't want to hear his stuff because my stuff is better. What is your thoughts on where hip hop is going right now, and why it feels so different, and why aren't people investing in it like they were before?
That's a good question. I think it's funny because I hear that a lot. I've been hearing a lot of this, like hip hop, the antithesis to hip hop, right? Hip hop dying? I remember Nas dropped an album, I think in 2007, 2006, Hip Hop is Dead, as well. And he made that proclamation. He's still making music, right? I think he just went on a 4 or 5 run album with Hit Boy. That's quite frankly, it's some of the best music that he's made in his career, right? Mm-hmm. I think it just depends, right? I think it just really depends on how you want to view that in your perception, and how you kind of view the world in that sense. So for myself, my belief is not hip hop is thriving. And I think there's a lot of great artists out there, whether we know them or not. Quite frankly, it's not really relevant in that sense, because we started my business partners here in San Diego and we started a once a month event called Hidden Vibes, right? And it was a place for people to come and discover new music, right? Because we quite frankly, we got tired of hearing people say like, there's no good music, hip hop sucks, R&B is whatever, like hasn't been, it had its peak in the 90s, so on and so forth. And we just got tired of the discourse, and we're just like, instead of us kind of sitting and soaking in on the negative, why don't we just kind of create something where people are able to kind of not only discover, but then also expand what's out there or whatnot. So, I mean, I would tell you that I think hip hop is thriving, and I don't think they thought it would come this far, no pun intended in that sense. But it's I think it's a really beautiful place, and I think that the great thing you're seeing with hip hop now is really the blending of the sounds, right? You're seeing Afro beats, you're seeing Amapiano, you're seeing soca, you're seeing reggae, you're seeing these sounds that are being blended in with some of our favorite rap and R&B tunes out there or whatnot. I think there's just a whole gateway of creative work and creative arts that are still to come from such a beautiful genre that is hip hop. So, but yeah, hip hop just depends on where you're looking at. That's all. It's a big world.
Abby, you are a new father, relatively new father, right? Mm-hmm. And things are kind of crazy right now. Like, how do you feel in this world raising a Black child? Like, do you think about that, or do you just, just do the best that you can and don't really give that too much thought? Because with everything else you have going on, it can be a little stressful, but it is part of our culture right now. Things are crazy, but you also are a dad. So where do you fall in line here?
First and foremost, being a dad, it's the best thing I've ever done. Let's get on. Let's get on a soapbox right now in terms of amplifying how important it is. Let's get on this brand campaign right now, understanding how
Right.
important it is to get into parenthood. Right. I know, Tanya. I know you and Ray have beautiful children. And I, quite frankly, I think I've told both of you guys that you guys both inspired me to get into to engage a little bit more into parenthood. So thank you for that. But listen, I think again it feels crazy right now, right? And I remember talking to my mom when I was born, and I remember there was some crisis that was happening in '85. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there was some crisis. She's like, I can't believe I'm bringing a child into this time. And for
Mm,
myself, having that perspective and having that wisdom of our ancestors and really seeing like where they came from and really understanding that, hey, there's always going to be challenges, right? There's always going to be trials and tribulations. There's always going to be a hurdle out there. There's always going to be some things that restrict. And I think it's that back to how you perceive and how you look at things, right? I feel that there's two main energy sources from where emotions and thoughts come from. One is love, the other one is fear. And for myself, I just choose to move from love all the time. I choose not to. I choose not to operate in fear. Um, I am a human. Sometimes that does happen, but having that consciousness and awareness of moving with love instead of leading with fear has served me well, quite frankly. And for myself, from a day-to-day perspective, I just, to your point, you said it yourself, I do my best every single day. And then I challenge myself to be better every single day, right? I read Atomic Habits last year, and that 1% better really resonated with me in terms of just really just getting that continuous improvement every single time. And that's something that's very much in alignment with my personal brand as well, too, right? In terms of how are you getting up every single day, and how are you trying to be just a tad bit better than you were yesterday? And that's how I approach. That's how I approach fatherhood. That's how I approach parenting. With him as with my son Amir and his mom. I think we do a really good job of that, and really just keeping with that and just continuing to stay rooted in love.
People don't be staying married these days. How are you making that happen?
You make it work, right? You gotta communicate. You gotta work hard. You gotta work through that and whatnot. And I think just anything, just in general, not just with marriage, but just the relationships in general are really challenging right now, right? I can't wait till we use like the term PTSD, right?
Yes.
PC T or TD, post COVID stress disorder. I think I butchered that, right? Like that's going. We're gonna have those. We're gonna have these conversations more formally from an academic perspective, whether now or in the future. I know that I actually know of people that are doing work on this from a sociology and an anthropology perspective, but I think it's just really just challenging. Like we were challenged and we were locked up in our houses for a few years, and I think a lot of people got comfortable with, being with self and being, and then also being forced to be still as well too, right? It's really hard to sometimes come out of that. I read something the other day where it's just like, sometimes you find that you find so much comfort and peace in yourself that you don't want to leave that, and I think everybody is really very much on their journey in terms of what that looks like. But I think, if anything, what I do know, as long as I've been on this earth, is I do know that with community, with culture, to bring that back to there, those things are very necessary for our survivorship, right? Like you need partnership, you need community, you need people in order for you to be able to thrive. Not even just thrive for sure, but that's a requirement for thriving. But just for survivorship, it improves your survivorship tremendously when you have that partnership. So that's why everybody should have kids. Have lots of kids. I know it's expensive. I know it's hard. The sleep thing sucks, but it's amazing. And it's
It
amazing
is.
to build those relationships. Not just with family, with marriages, partnership, whatever it may be, but then also with your children as well too.
Yeah.
So
I saw a meme the other day. Oh, it cracked me up. And this girl on this meme was talking about outside goers. She was like, "You outside goers are always giving us inside stayers all kind of problems, and we're happy inside." And I want to ask you, because most people in the business that you
I think I
I
lost
know,
you, Tanya.
but
There you
personally,
are.
I am an inside stayer. Okay. Cause first of all, cause everybody's crazy outside. I built this. So I love what we built and I'm comfortable and we're outside so much. So my question to you is when you're not working, are you an outside goer or an inside stayer?
Uh, Both. To answer your question, I'm both. I think it depends on the day, what I'm feeling. Recently, I've been called to be a little bit more still, around and just be a little bit more still. I've been spending a lot of time just from a fitness perspective, like just
Mm,
like getting there and getting my body right, getting my tempo right in that sense. I think it's really important to get outside. The sun is good for you. Getting grounded. Take off your shoes, take off your socks, go find some grass, go get
yeah.
grounded. That kind of stuff. That stuff is really important. So again, it really just depends for myself. The last couple of years for myself has been definitely a little bit more chill, a little bit more. Even though it looks like I'm outside, and I know folks that see that they're like, "Oh, yeah, he's out." Not. It's there's a good blend and there's a good balance of the two. And I think for anybody really, I think having that awareness and understanding of what you need, I think is super duper key. Right? It's super duper key. I see people kind of just walking around sometimes like zombies, like not understanding and needing that. Hey, go outside, go socialize with people, go hang out with some folks, go.
Go have a
Yeah,
conversation.
exactly. And finding that balance, or as a good friend of mine always says, like finding that equanimity, right? Like, in order for you to kind of move through, to move through this world, successfully, I guess, right?
Oh, my
So
youngest son, Roman, he always has a problem with me and Ray, more Ray than me. And he says, Dad is always talking to strangers everywhere we go. These strangers are always talking to him. They're tell him all their business, even if they just met him. And every time I go somewhere with Dad, it's always him and some strangers. They're always talking. And I was like, what's wrong with that? What do you mean, what's wrong with that, Mom? But honestly, I think it's great to be able to get to know people. Like the humanity that we have the opportunity to express and experience on a regular basis is underrated. It is absolutely underrated. It's get off your phone, stop looking down, open your eyes, have a conversation, be a part of the world. It's fine. Talk to strangers. And he just be so freaking irritated.
that's so funny. No, like I'm first generation born American, right? Like my parents immigrated here from Eritrea many years ago, and they learned social customs, culture,
Mm,
how to interact with people, how to interact with different types of people by just getting outside and talking to folks, right, and engaging and rubbing shoulders, right. And I think if anything, if I want to send one message, is like don't be afraid to talk to people, right. I think there's so much value. There's so much value that can be extrapolated. There's so much perspective. There's so much vision. There's so much depth that you can get, seeing from another person's perspective, right? I have it on one of my vision boards that I did. It's like there's nothing more refreshing than to be able to look at the lens of the world through a fresh pair of eyes, right?
mm,
The best way of doing that is to be able to lean in and connect with different folks, right? That's that power, that connectivity, and the power of community, the power of people, right? And again, like that's very much centric to AMBESA and the agency, and what we do is we are in tune with what the people want, what they're interested in, what they desire, and we're here to help brands bring that together and really drive some engagement and real business metrics and achievements for them on that sense. So we're nothing without people.
one thing I want to say about that is in order for you to be able to do all of that, you actually have to be a listener and listen more than you talk to be able to actually hear and understand what people are saying. Sometimes they're not even clear about what they want, but when you listen and you pay attention to detail, you're able to get that out of them,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you do a great job at that with all that I've seen, all the work that you've done and your career, where it is. Congratulations, first of all, but more so, kudos to you for being a great listener. I think just kudos to you. So before I let you go, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, that's a great question. I want my legacy to be known for that. I was there for people. I was there for the advancement of our people. I always tell people this. I don't know if I should share this, but I'm going to share it anyways. at my funeral, or my passing and stuff like that, I want the song, I want Mos Def, or now Yasin Bey's song Umi Says, to be played when I pass. And if anybody knows the song, it's like Umi says, "Shine your light on the world, shine your light for the world to see." The meaning of life is to discover your gifts, and the purpose of it is to amplify those gifts. So I just the legacy I want to know is that I gave as much as I can. I gave all my gifts, and I gave that out to the world, in order to make it just a slightly better place. So.
We have a question for you. It says, "What's your long-term goal for your agency?"
Long-term goal for the agency is we want to be the premier. We want to be the premier shop for brands to come in terms of driving their brand campaigns and advertisement needs, in terms of their connection to the consumer and connectivity with the consumer to drive conversion. Ultimately, that we want to be the premier. I started this agency 4 years ago unofficially, and kind of accidentally built it to what it looks like today, to be honest with you. I wouldn't imagine to where it was even then. And, quite frankly, a lot of that had to do in terms of thinking bigger and expanding my mind there. But, if you see the advertisement agency world, it's very much dominated by Madison Avenue in New York. And then you've got some folks like White and Kennedy who do some amazing work up in Portland, and so on and so forth and whatnot. But, I would love for AMBESA to be, the goal is for AMBESA to be looked at the same way that a White and Kennedy is looked at. That would be the dream of this agency. And, obviously, faith without works is dead. Work without faith is without dead as well too. And I'm very much in the belief of that. So that's where we're going. And that's the charter of this organization.
I love that. Well, before you get out of here, share with the people how they can connect with you, how they can continue to follow your journey, and, just be a part of your story moving forward.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Connect with, if you guys see me in the streets, say what's up. I go by the nickname of Abby. I also go by the alias of HONDO in the entertainment world. You can find me on Instagram at Abby HONDO, ABBYHONDO. You can find the agency at AMBESA Agency, AMBESA Agency, AGENCY. We're doing a lot of really cool things that are kind of coming up and stuff like that. We've got some really great clients and talents that are signed on. We've got some really cool projects that are coming on. I will give a quick shout out to my DJ and business partner, Dashe. She's got an event on Saturday at a Part-Time Lover here in San Diego. So if you're there, pull up. It's a full vinyl set that she's got going on. So it's going to be really something really special. Yeah, we got a lot of other things. We got a Spectrum commercial running with To Hear More right now, that you probably catch it on television. That's been running everywhere. A lot of good things up in the horizon. So tap in with us and don't be shy. Say what's up.
I love that. His information is down at the bottom. Connect with him on Instagram. And moving forward, I want to thank you for your time today. And I wish you continued success in your business, in your personal life. And, I'm just glad that we had the opportunity.
Appreciate you, Tanya.
What we do on a regular basis, because it actually adds quality to the work. It adds quality to the relationships that we kind of acquire on this journey in life, not just professionally, but personally, socially. These are all things to help, like I said, help you be better. All of the best leaders, whether it's organizational, elected officials, artists, leaders. What are you leading? How are you leading? And how much humanity do you continue to instill in everything that you do? So I hope you enjoyed it today. I love your feedback. Love to hear what you're thinking. Please stay connected to Abby and the great work that he's doing. If you have a business or a brand and you're looking to find a way to amplify it, to empower your customer base, get in touch with him. He's really good at what he does. And maybe one day I'll tell you how I know him. But until then, it's your girl T, and I'll see you later. Hey, thanks for showing up to the podcast where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. When you get a sec, take a moment, leave a comment. what did you think about today's episode? And share it with someone that you know could use the gems that were dropped today. Follow and subscribe. You don't want to miss who's coming up next. You never know who could show up here and what they could say. For your professional needs, marketing, PR, communications, and leadership, make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at Sand and Shores, or hit us up at sandandshores.com. Again, thanks so much for showing up. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.